Most people think America's wars in the Middle East began because of oil or because of 9/11. They are wrong. America's first war overseas started more than 200 years ago for a completely different reason. One that today almost everyone is afraid to say out loud: political Islam. Today I'm going to tell you how Thomas Jefferson discovered that when you are dealing with an ideology that sees you as an infidel, there is no point in sending checks. You send the Marines. Let's go back to 1801, to the shores of Tripoli, to understand why America's first foreign war is actually the key to understanding what's happening today in Yemen, Iran, and Gaza. America's first overseas war wasn't about lawless pirates roaming the seas. It was about confronting an Islamic state-sponsored system of slavery run by North African regime under Ottoman authority. From Morocco to Tripoli, Muslim rulers authorized the kidnapping of Americans and Europeans, their sale into slavery, and ransom demands, all openly justified in the name of Islam. At the time, the United States was a very young country. This was before America became a superpower, before it had a real navy. In 1785, while serving as US ambassador to France, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams met with Tripoli's ambassador, Sidi Haj Abdul Rahman Aja. Jefferson and Adams asked him a simple question: why are you attacking us? We haven't done anything to you. The answer they received should be taught in every course on Islam and the Middle East. The ambassador answered us that it was founded on the law of their great prophet, that it was written in the Quran, that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim man who should be slain in battle was sure to go to paradise. He went on to describe the psychological warfare, how their sailors would board ships with a dagger in each hand and another one between their teeth, terrifying their enemies into submission. There are several fundamental Islamic principles at play here, things that were true then and remain true today. First, the ambassador made it clear this is a religious matter. The Prophet Muhammad in the Quran appears in the very first sentence. He explains that anyone who is not a Muslim is an infidel and that it is a duty to fight them. Indeed, the command to fight non-believers appears dozens of times in the Quran. He also brings up the promise of paradise to those who kill infidels, and the deliberate use of terror and violence to achieve victory. But perhaps the most interesting part of the ambassador's answer was this: it wasn't personal. He was essentially saying, it is not about you Americans, it's about us. You are weak and you are not Muslim, so we will attack you. If you want to stop, you must pay protection money, and a lot of it. Thomas Jefferson didn't want to pay, but at first he had little choice. However, when Jefferson became president, the Pasha, the Muslim ruler of Tripoli, demanded a ransom of $200,000. To put that in perspective, that was 2% of the entire US government's annual revenue. Jefferson refused. Tripoli declared war on the United States. This was the start of the First Barbary War, 1801 to 1805. During this conflict, the Americans captured the city of Derna. This was the first time the American flag was raised in victory on foreign soil and marked the first successful overseas action of the US Marines. The legendary British Admiral Horatio Nelson praised one of the daring American raids, calling it the most bold and daring act of the age. Even Pope Pius VII stated, "The United States, though in their infancy, have done more to humble the anti-Christian barbarians on the African coast than all the European states had done." The war ended in an American victory, temporarily stopping the kidnapping of American ships and the enslavement of their crews. But as soon as America was weakened by the War of 1812 with Britain, the Muslim pirates returned. In 1815, the US Navy launched the Second Barbary War, which ended the threat for good. In the following years, as the Napoleonic Wars ended and technology advanced, European powers finally put a stop to 300 years of piracy, during which over 1 million Europeans had been taken as slaves by Muslim groups operating under the Ottoman Empire. The similarities between America's First War and the wars of today are staggering. No one talks about this, or at least I haven't heard a single commentator makes the connection between the First War and what we're seeing now. When we listen to the ambassador from Tripoli in 1785, we aren't hearing a pirate looking for cash. We are hearing a theology. It is the same theology that divides the world into Dar el-Islam, the house of Islam, and Darb el-Harb, the house of war, the place where one must fight the infidels until they submit. Today, as we look at the Middle East, this dynamic is alive and kicking. Iran, for example, isn't just managing a border dispute. It is exporting an Islamic revolution with the goal of global religious rule. When the Houthis rebels in Yemen attack ships in the Red Sea in 2025 and 2026, they aren't doing it for political reasons. Their flag explicitly states, "Death to America, death to Israel, a curse upon the Jews, victory to Islam." It is a religious struggle. Just listen to what they are telling you. There is a straight line stretching from the shores of Tripoli to the Strait of Hormuz. This is not a territorial conflict that can be settled with money or concessions. Thomas Jefferson understood this. When the other side tells you they are fighting you because their God, Allah, commanded it, you should believe them. In 1801, America realized that peace isn't bought with gold. Peace is achieved through deterrence and strength. The tools have changed. Sailing ships became fighter jets, and swords became missiles, but the root remains the same. This war on the shores of Tripoli was the first time America fought overseas. It wasn't for territory, it was for liberty in the face of Islamic enslavement. Perhaps if we taught this lesson a bit better in schools, we wouldn't be so surprised by the headlines we see today. Please help me spread this simple truth and consider getting my Jerusalem Crash Course. You will learn a ton and you will be supporting the channel at the same time. It's a total win-win. My next political video is going to be about how Islam Islamized Jesus. It's going to be an interesting one. So make sure you follow and subscribe. See you in the next video. Yalla bye.